Things that were once considered optional in the writing community are now considered almost required, especially in the online writing community. It seems like you have to have beta readers, you have to have a critique group, and you have to belong to some sort of writing group, all of which kind of brings up the question about feedback. Do you have to take feedback?
Welcome back to Coffee with the Authors. I'm Wendelin Van Draanen, and this is Mark Parsons, and we are traditionally published authors who are here to try to help you navigate the craft and business of writing. So we're talking about feedback this week, and really the question is, how do you know whether the feedback that you're getting from people is feedback you should be taking? Because sometimes if you take the feedback you get from people, it could be worse than improving what it is that you've written. So we're going to talk about ways that you can kind of assess whether the feedback is something that you should take or consider at least. So probably the number one thing you should consider is, are they someone who reads in the genre that you're writing in? Like if you're writing mysteries, is this somebody who's well-versed in mysteries? Is it someone who could give you valuable feedback where mysteries are concerned? Because if they're not, maybe their feedback isn't like as valuable to you as someone who is a mystery reader, someone who knows the mystery genre well.
Every genre has their own tropes. And I know, for example, like romance and rom-coms and romantasy have very specific tropes.
Yeah.
And if you're not well versed in those, you don't know what the readers are looking for. You're not, even if you're a brilliant reader otherwise, you're not really going to be a good critic for that particular genre. Okay, number two, if the advice is editorial, does that person have professional editing experience? A lot of people have kind of a misconception of what editing actually is. They think you should take your book to someone with a degree in English, for example, who knows all about spelling and punctuation and grammar and all those things. That's actually not what a professional editor does, or that's a very, very small part of what a professional editor does. What an actual editor does is story development. So if you're dealing with somebody who has done story development for pay professionally for years, whether they're freelance or they work for a publisher, then they kind of have the bona fides to actually give you good advice about the structure of your story. Other than that, they're basically a copy editor. And they can go through and look for mistakes and look for punctuation errors or whatever, but that is not the same thing as having an actual, honest-to-God experienced editor look at your work.
It's kind of like building a bridge. You want to make sure that the people that you are having build a bridge are engineers,
Yes.
Not people who just like think that that's a pretty bridge. So yeah, make sure that you have people who understand the structural aspects of what it is you're trying to accomplish and not just anybody.
You ever notice that when
when
there's a construction project going on, there will be like a bunch of, they're usually old men. How do I know? Standing around talking about it and pontificating to each other about what they're doing and what they're doing wrong. And you don't want those people, metaphorically speaking, getting in there and dealing with the engineering on your story.
The reason I'm laughing about this is because we do this run, and there was this hotel that was under construction for years. And every time we went by them on the run, there were these guys, and they were just hanging out like on the non-construction side of things. And they were talking amongst themselves and pointing, and just, that they were talking about the whole process of it. And a social thing for them to get together and, talk construction, I guess. But it was just like, so that's why I was laughing.
Yeah, you don't want those guys talking about your story.
So if you're in a writer's group, you may feel like other people in your writer's group would be really helpful to you for, feedback. But sometimes they're not, because what they wind up doing is kind of suggesting that you should write your story the way that their style, their way of writing, because that's what they're comfortable with. So overall, I think it's better to have a good reader be the person who gives you feedback, a person who reads in your genre, give you feedback, than maybe somebody in your writer's group.
Especially we're talking about kind of the beta reader stuff. You want to get just kind of an overall assessment. Does the story work? Yeah. Okay, and if you are going to take advice from writers, which ideally would be specific writing advice, here's kind of my litmus test for taking writing advice. We're talking actual writing advice, not SPG advice and not business advice, but just line level writing advice. It's really simple. It's the person who's giving me the advice. Is their work that I would be proud to have written? Is it work that I wish I had written? Is it the sort of work that I aspire to write? Because if it is, then there's something valuable there, and they're headed in the same direction that you are, and maybe they're a little bit ahead of you, and it would be maybe not a bad idea to kind of see how they navigate through the story structure. But if someone's giving you writing advice and you read their work and you realize, I don't wish that I had written this work, this is not the kind of work that I want to be writing going forward, then that's kind of a sign that maybe you don't want to put a lot of time and attention into their advice.
I kind of make it a policy that I don't give advice to writers, beginning writers, people.
Which is good advice.
Because I just feel uncomfortable doing it. But I have made the occasional exception to that. And it's been interesting to me because people that you think would really value your advice based on, your position and success in your career, it's hard to take advice from people. It's hard to take advice and take it to heart especially if you're at the early stages and you have somebody who is well established giving you advice. You may feel like their advice is like overwhelming. My first advice I got from a professional editor was cut it in half and I'll look at it again. I mean, I was just like, I can't do that. But eventually I did. So the point being, you can't see your own work when you're first starting out. And if you do get advice from somebody who's well established in a career the way you want your career to be, and they do take time and give you advice, it may feel overwhelming to you. It may feel like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go back to the drawing board. But understand that that is actually something you should sit with and absorb and try to figure out if there's merit to what it is they've given you, and then back to the drawing board.
I think the bottom line is this.
Wait, before we get to the bottom line, if you're getting any value out of this content, will you please give us a thumbs up? It really helps the algorithm. They say you should, like, share, and subscribe. We never say that anymore, but please give us a thumbs up because it will really help us out. Okay, back to you, Mark.
Yes. I think the bottom line is this. Not all feedback is created equal. So you really want to kind of look at the source before you start taking all this different feedback. Otherwise, it'll drive you crazy. Consider this. You've never run a marathon. You want to run a marathon. There could be a bunch of people, kind of like the old guys watching the construction, that can tell you all these things they have heard. I have heard when you run a marathon, you want to eat 5 pounds of raisins before you start.
We are really referencing old guys in this episode.
I know.
We're not picking on old guys. We are old guys.
So the punchline is this, okay? If you're going to run a marathon and you're in a room full of people who have never run a marathon, they're probably not going to help you run a marathon. Right? It's kind of common sense. But if you want to run a marathon and you're talking to somebody who has run like a dozen marathons, real, honest to God, 26.2 marathons, and they have kind of feedback or advice, or this, I found this helpful, I found this was a big mistake, it might be worth listening to. The advice is always be open to feedback, and you should be, but you have to consider the source. Otherwise, you will drive yourself crazy. Every time someone gives you advice, you will change your manuscript back and forth until you're just kind of lost.
You need to find a confidence in your own writing as well. You have something special that's just you, that's your style, it's your way of putting something together in story form. Don't lose sight of that based on the feedback you get from other people who may not have, your voice or your vision. We have a friend who has a writer friend, and the writer friend asked our friend to read her manuscript. And our friend loved the manuscript. This is amazing. I love this manuscript. The writer friend had some other people read her manuscript, and they gave her feedback. And so she put that feedback to work. And then she asked our friend to read the manuscript again. And our friend said it lost all its magic. It was like, it was just not the same anymore. So trust yourself also. Don't feel like you have to go with the wind. Make sure that you hold on to your vision and your voice. And then, balance the feedback people give you against what it is that you're doing.
Your best friend in this whole thing is your own artistic vision for your story. When you get stuck or you're not sure whether or not to take the feedback, kind of go back to your North Star, which is, what is my artistic vision for this story?
We hope you got something useful out of this. We hope you've got inspired to keep going with your writing. It just gets done page by page, so work on it a little bit. Be true to your own voice. Here's hoping you get some valuable feedback, and remember, dream big, work hard, don't give up.
And always keep writing.
Sorry, that sounded really witchy, didn't it? Sunny.
Dearie?
Dearie?